Information on the mystery drones. More spotted this weekend. Here's Chris.
Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. I know people in the administration watch the show, so I hope they heed this message. What you are ignoring, you are empowering. You have to tell the people what you know about these drones. They no longer give you the benefit of the doubt. Those days are over. All of you want to know why Trump won, why all these people have such low opinions of everything. It's all related to this lack of belief in whom you can believe. We see the negative impact of nonchalance both in what has this country crazy as well as what collectively we could not care less about. Add Madison, Wisconsin to the list of communities that has suffered a school shooting. 3 dead, including the shooter. Now, usually, I'll be honest, this shooting would not warrant much attention. But allegedly, the shooter was a female. So now it's getting attention. Why? Because we don't usually see that. Unless you count the trans shooter in Tennessee in 2023, you haven't seen a female shooter here since before they were even really a thing in the late 1970s. Now, I see it as interesting, not because it means anything specifically about females, though, if you want to look at gender-specific issues, we are, at our own peril, increasingly ignoring the distress among young men in our society, especially white ones. I know. The farther to the left you are in the political spectrum, the more your eyes are rolling. Oh, poor white males. I get it. But know this. Poor white males, the distress I'm talking about is part of the reason Trump did so well with that group. My point is this. We now see with this Madison, Wisconsin, don't be surprised that a female was involved if that's true. Females are not immune from the worst STD of our time. Not what you think. Social media transmitted disease. The disease of enragement. All fear, all outrage, all the time. One of my favorite bands is this punk band, The Idols. IDLES from the UK. They've got a great line about this. Fear leads to panic. Panic leads to pain. Pain leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. That is the toxic spin cycle that we keep seeing. It leads to the shootings. Doesn't matter that mental health is involved. Of course it is, but it only gets exacerbated, this cycle, when someone can't have a healthy mind and emotional self to process. And no gun law is going to break that cycle. Certainly not online. Certainly not when so many who would otherwise have no traction are living off it with their digital broadcasts and podcasts or whatever you want to call them. There's so much opportunity to divide. When will people stop making this opportunity? That takes us to what's driving this drone madness. There's no reason for people to be panicked about it except because you won't tell them the truth. And it's not that they're little green men. You don't have to be absurd to be transparent. This is an unforced error of government, ignoring the reality that everyone literally sees the drones, and yet thinking they don't have to tell us anything. We literally can see one of two things. Government is way less capable than many assumed in terms of the ability to detect and to coordinate information. Or you're just thinking that you don't have to say anything that you don't want to say and you deserve all the doubters online. Just hours ago, the White House finally issued a statement it should have put out a week ago, calling the sightings a, quote, combination of lawful commercial drones, hobbyist drones, and law enforcement drones, as well as manned fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, and even stars that were reportedly, mistakenly reported as drones. Duh. But why are there so many? And why are they so big when you can't get them that size on the commercial market for people? Why did you start, instead of with that statement, with BS like this from, of all people, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas attempting to tamp down fears? Remember this?
We have not seen anything unusual. We have not seen any unusual activity. We know of no threat. We know of no nefarious activity. We have deployed our state-of-the-art technology. We've deployed our experts to New Jersey. That technology has not confirmed any drone sightings. In addition, it has confirmed that some reported drone sightings are, in fact, small aircraft. The reality is you can have a 15-year-old kid who buys a drone off the shelf and puts it up in the sky.
Well, which is it? 15-year-old kid who does it off the shelf, so that's what there are a lot of them out there now? Or they didn't confirm any? Which is it? And of course, this is the same guy who used the same tactic about the southern border. Learn the lesson. Okay? Either admit you can't track drones that well, which is true, as you're going to hear tonight from one of our experts, or explain what the big ones are. But don't say, move along, nothing to see here, because we literally see it. And now we hear tomorrow Congress members are getting a classified briefing. Why? Why? If there's no threat and nothing but mistakes, why do you need a classified briefing? Even if the reason that it is a classified briefing is because some of the detection systems are classified and they don't want to explain it to just everybody, it still reeks of non-transparency. And we just can't have that anymore. It is a root cause of our division. And look, these aren't regular drones that a 15-year-old kid could get off the shelf, right? You check Best Buy's website, right? I had my producer, Ben, do this for me, okay? These are the most popular drones, all right? They're nothing like what we're seeing in size or performance, all right? And, okay, no threat. I agree. I have not told you that I think this is Iran, but I haven't even put anybody on like that. But let's just be honest, okay? A year ago, nobody gave a damn because we had so much other drama going on, but Langley Air Force Base was, they had drones swarming all over them. They reported it in this past October for like 17 days. Not a year ago, it was like 2 months ago. Feels like a year. The Chinese citizen who was just arrested trying to get on a plane for flying a drone over Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. What, did Mayorkas not know about that? Or why at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base on Friday? Why did they close airspace for hours after spotting drones in the vicinity? You see what I'm saying? Just be straight. Now, here's the big problem. When you ignore, you empower so that the lack of transparency creates a vacuum. And now the internet is only too happy to fill it with all of these opportunists and complete BS. When you won't tell people what is true, when you refuse to be straight, you are opening the door for the crooked. And everyone looking to play the situation comes flooding in. And even if you discount 80% of the sightings and all the videos on social media, and a lot of them, are made up. Okay, this is an AI-generated image of a drone shot down over Brooklyn. They should have made it much bigger like the one on the highway. At least that made sense if you're going to lie about something. But you're asking for people to play this to advantage. Enter Donald Trump. Listen to what he said.
Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense.
Now, look, he's wrong about which drones they can track and which they can't. That's not the point, although it's a little frightening seeing how he's going to be our commander-in-chief. But he'll have people around him. But then again, the people he's going to have around him may make things worse. Whatever. He's not my problem tonight. My problem tonight is you gave him this opportunity. Stop handing people who you know want to make you look bad bats and then tell them not to swing at you. Okay? That's why, look, what prompted me to say this tonight? I didn't want to do that. I don't want to have to say this, okay? There are a lot of other things I want to cover. There are a lot of other things I want to talk about. I don't want to have to constantly reflect on how FOS our government is. But a post goes out from some guy who's a drone manufacturer, okay? And it gets like a gazillion views. And why it got a gazillion views is part of the problem. But again, the government set us up for this to get traction. All right? Here's a taste of what this guy came up with, which is the new. I've heard this from like 6 different sources in 3 days. And tonight I will debunk it, and it needs to be debunked. This is not about the government looking for nuclear materials because something was stolen. Okay? I know you've heard it. It's not true. But listen to this guy.
I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed, about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew that that thing was headed towards the United States. If they are our drones, the only reason why they would be flying and flying that low is because they're trying to smell something on the ground. Gas leaks, radioactive material, whatever.
Look, he knows that's not true about why the only reason they would be flying there and why they'd be doing it at night. It's not something they would need to be doing at night. And I don't even know what it means. He had his hands on. Like, what does that even mean? But I'm not upset at this guy, okay? I really don't blame him, okay? You don't know what's going on. This is somewhat of your area of expertise. You don't like the insecurity of not understanding something obvious that your government is telling you doesn't exist. So you get a little desperate. We keep seeing this again and again. Now, why did he get millions and millions of views? Rogan. Joe Rogan. Guy who constantly says, what do I know? I don't know anything. He's high half the time he does the interviews. He's got a huge, this is the first video about these drones that has got me genuinely concerned. Now, I don't know Rogan, okay? I applaud his success. Good for him. But this guy is not a thought leader. He is not an expert. But this is the opportunity that this government, this administration keeps creating. And what does it mean to you? That people will take what a guy says when he tells them, I really don't know what I'm talking about, but he gets traction. That's the opportunity you're creating. And again, I'm not going after the drone guy. I don't blame him for being suspicious. I don't go after Rogan. He can use his platform any way he wants. That's America. Beautiful. Signature freedom of us. Keep going. I hope he doubles his audience. I don't think so. I think that now you're going to see a lot more talented people on the right getting involved. And I think his audience is actually going to shrink because now people have woken up to the reality that you can get traction online. There are a lot of Americans that will listen to things that they hear in podcasts that they will not listen to on other outlets. So there's opportunity. People will fill the void. But here's the thing. Nuclear material. Now people are freaking out online about this. And I don't blame Rogan or this guy. They are within their rights to speculate. I blame the people in power. And I shouldn't have to do what we have to do tonight. I should not be in the business of saying, I should be asking the provocative questions. How do we know? How do you know? Maybe it is nuclear. This guy said it. I don't know. He's in the drone business. You tell me. That's what the media usually does. Not now, because our government isn't putting out the fires it needs to put out. They're not on top of it. They're not owning it. So now we have to do it. We have to bring in nuclear experts and professors and figure out what it could be and what it couldn't. It's got to stop. There's a new administration coming in. I can't tell you it's going to get better. Why? Because Trump loves the drama. The problem for him is he's now going to be the source of what's supposed to repair it. Let's bring in Republican Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett, friend of show, and Professor Dakota Rudisill. And you can tell me if I mangled your name. I do it all the time. Professor, how do I say your name the right way?
You nailed it. Rudisill.
30 years studying nuclear weapons, work in Homeland Security, understands, okay? First of all, let's start on the political. And Professor, you listen to what I hear from Tim. If you got any questions, let me know. Representative, I have it right that there's a classified briefing, right? Why do you guys need one if there's nothing to see here?
There was a classified briefing last week. I didn't go to it, Chris, because and thank you for having me back on, brother.
Of course.
They bring you into the briefing, and then you can't talk about it. And if you do, you can be brought up on charges. And even if it's something you already know, which you and I think I know what's going on with some of this. I don't think they're sniffing out nuclear stuff. I don't blame that guy for saying that. Everybody's got a theory on it. My guys down at my Liars Club, coffee club every Saturday morning, they've got a theory on it too. But the reality is, I think it's a combination of everything. If I could go into that, is that all right?
You use the time as you want, sir. You serve the people.
Brother. Well, I think you've got a combination of things going on. You've got some copycats, but I do think the Chinese are using this. They have componentry and everything we've got. The camera that's filming me right now is Chinese. They have their componentry in our fighter pilots, and there was a report out a while back, and it's been talked about a lot that they're afraid they could have the capabilities of even turning off some of our jets if we were to get into a conflict with them. I don't know if they're behind 100% this, but they are monitoring this. You remember that Chinese spy balloon?
Weather balloon.
Yeah. That thing flew over the Aleutian Islands, came down, went across the country, transversed, turned directions, came back around, took in Oak Ridge National Laboratory in my backyard there in Tennessee, did everything. Then they shot it down off the coast of Myrtle Beach. Now, the Chinese are cold and calculated. They look at everything that we do. They monitor every movement. They're monitoring. And on that thing, they didn't really have to do much spying because, honestly, they've got people in our colleges and universities. They had a member of Congress had a relationship with a known spy. You had a known spy that was a driver for a U.S. senator for 10 years, for goodness sakes. So I think what they're monitoring is our response. And you are correct. We are going to end up moving on off this thing, and then something's going to happen major because of these drones, because we are not paying attention to it. And I firmly believe that the Chinese are monitoring this. They have componentry in these things. They know where they are. They know what's going on, and they are watching our political reaction, our military reaction, and just our press reaction to this thing. And for our White House to kind of poo-poo it, to me, sends the wrong message. I think you should take the American public serious. They're concerned about this. New Jersey I know a bunch of folks up there in New Jersey since I've been in Congress. They talk funny, but they're good folks. And that was one of the most compliant areas during COVID, if you remember. But these folks are not compliant about these drones. They are incredibly heightened about it, and they should be. So, and that's basically it. That's what I think it is. So they've got.
I don't want you to tell us what you hear. I don't want to tell us what we hear tomorrow, because I don't want you to be thrown in jail. But hopefully,
I probably won't even go. I probably won't even be invited to this one. They usually tell me about 15 minutes before these things. They usually don't want people like myself in those meetings.
I hope if you get information, you're able to use it at least, to protect the people who voted for you. Now, Professor, first of all, let me just tell you, Dakota, he really does believe he doesn't have an accent. So what he said about the New Jersey, he actually believes it. Just so you know, I've worked. I'm just telling you, he believes it, but don't judge him by that on everything else he said. Everything else you can take seriously. Now, Dakota, people are looking and saying, they're obviously pretending that they don't see what we see. So maybe that's because they're so frightened by what is actually happening here, which is military aircraft, drones, manned or unmanned, looking for this nuclear material that went missing. And we saw the report that a Cat 3 material went missing from some truck or something in transport. And that's what they're looking for in Jersey. Nukes.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. So this is all just kind of reminded me a little bit of the flying saucer scares in the 1950s. But we're in a different technological age, and there are these drones around, right, that were not around before. And we also have the heritage of the Cold War with the nuclear arsenals that were built then, and smaller arsenals are around today. And obviously, radiological materials are part of our lives in medical settings and other settings. So looking at this document from the New Jersey EPA, it looks like basically what they're saying is that there was a small component from a medical scanner which uses germanium-68, which is a radiological material, but this small item has gone missing in transit. If you read the document itself, it underscores very, very clearly that there's minimal health risk from this. So just based on that document, I wouldn't be concerned about a risk to the public. And frankly, I wouldn't connect that up with the drones at all. There are no facts I've seen in the public record that would suggest that there's some sort of search underway for this piece, this component from some medical scanner, right? Using some sort of secret drone operation. Much less there's, some government entity which is using drones off New Jersey to look for a loose nuclear weapon. I mean, there's just so I've worked nuclear issues my career over 30 years, including focusing a lot on the question of loose nukes out of the former Soviet Union. And there's nothing in the public record today that suggests that we are at a greater risk from a Soviet-built nuclear weapon than we were 2 weeks ago or 15 years ago. But the risk was largest when the Soviet Empire cracked up in the late 80s and the early 1990s. And then there were tens of thousands of Soviet nuclear weapons scattered across 15 Soviet republics and then in the Red Army occupied parts of Eastern Europe. And the security was terrible. The accounting was awful. And the United States worked closely with Russia for a couple of decades after the end of the Cold War through the Nunn-Lugar CTR program to round up.
Let me stop you there, Dakota.
So, yeah.
Let me stop you there because I understand exactly what you're saying, but you're also way beyond what people who are watching are going to be wanting. All they want to know is, are they looking for nukes now? You say no, good. But I'll end with a quick anecdote, Tim, that'll date me, but Dakota will impress you. You were just saying past senators Nunn and Lugar, they did a bipartisan, go to Russia and help them clean up their biologics and get rid of any small suitcase-style nukes they're worried about. I did a story for them. They asked the media, why don't you cover this instead of chasing after our girlfriends all the time? I went to Russia, to outer Siberia, a place called Shucha, and in a barn, this is not a joke, I'm not exaggerating any of this, in a barn that they sealed with a wax seal and a piece of rope at night is where they kept their chemical weapons. On wine racks that went all the way back in this huge barn, that was their security for those. I was part of that. You were right then. They were worried about it. It was the last time our government worked together because of a bigger concern than their own advantage, in my opinion. Senators from the right and the left got money to clean those up, and it made a big difference. You're right, Dakota, and thank you for setting us straight about this. It won't stop the speculation, but I don't blame you for that. I don't blame the people online either. I blame the people in power who are charged with giving people the information they need so they can have the confidence they must. Congressman Burchett, always a pleasure. I'll talk to you before Christmas for sure. Take care.
All right. Love you, brother.
I love you. Be well. Dakota, I don't know you that well. I don't love you yet. 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Coming up. So, social media also going nuts about the healthcare CEO. Different vibe, though. Different vibe. People are angry. So much so that they lionize an anti-hero, someone who represents everything wrong. Why? Because they're more concerned about something else, even than him being an assassin. Over the weekend, huge images of this chooch projected at a concert, and the crowd went wild. Why? Two men from different generations with their take on what is hitting and what we're missing. The one and only Geraldo Rivera, and a man big enough to have three names, Brian Tyler Cohen, Lion of the Left. Next.
Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by all these people who are saying that we're evil by wishing that the McDonald's person hadn't snitched on him. No, we're not.
And even in real life, he is our hero because we need more Robin Hoods.
Sorry, but you can't get me to feel bad when things happen to evil people.
Hey there, Luigi, what's it like in New York City? I know when you get to prison, you got something planned for Diddy. Yes, you do. You're my little vigilante boo.
I wanted to bring in some better minds to discuss this because I'm having a tough time balancing the people say stupid stuff on social media all the time because they're just desperate for attention, especially in this generation, versus the, wow, they really don't value things the way I thought they would. So, Geraldo Rivera here and Brian Tyler Cohen. Now, I am a big fan. You know Geraldo. I don't have to introduce him. It's not that Brian has millions of subscribers, which he does. I'm telling you, he is the intelligent, responsible future of the Democratic Party. So he's an interesting voice to listen to for me, and I think for you also. It's good to have you both.
Chris.
They already know that you're my mentor, Geraldo. I don't got to build you up. But Geraldo, do you share my concerns that it's not just that they see this guy like the Joker from the Batman series, you know, the anti-hero that we're going to celebrate, but that we're seeing young people have a grievance that they haven't even lived yet. You know, a lot of these people are probably still on their parents' health care because the ACA allows them to be on until 26, but they're talking like they've been wronged. But I feel like they're appropriating the oppression and victimization. How do you take it?
First of all, I haven't heard the expression chooch since I was in the 11th grade in West Babylon.
It applies for this guy.
Funny. Right. Listen, I think that he's in he's the latest incarnation of a long tradition. The Menendez brothers are a relatively recent incarnation of it. Billy the Kid, Charles Manson, Robin Hood, a millennial Unabomber. The rebel, the anti-establishment figure, very traditional. And the fact that the guy is drop dead gorgeous with six-pack abs, he's got the body of an Olympic swimmer, doesn't hurt. So I think that this will pass. I think that really, the anti-establishment, anti-insurance evil people, that was the first phase. That was down here. Once you kicked in and you saw his face in that surveillance shot when he's flirting with the clerk in the hostel on the Upper West Side, then it goes from here to here. So when you combine sex and violence and kind of a vigilante spirit, this guy's the latest in the a long running, he's the latest incarnation of a long tradition, Chris.
All right, so I'll give that to him, Brian. That makes sense to me on a personal level. But the issue, it can't be a coincidence that it's so overpopulated by young people, even though I know social media plays to a younger audience. But Brian, how are you processing it, and what are you hearing among your people?
I think the main thing that we have to consider is, look, I know that a lot of people, there's a whole divide where some people are upset about, the lionization of Luigi. Some people are very much for what he's done. I think that more broadly, we have to take a step back and just consider these younger kids, Gen Z, they grew up in a generation where school shootings were the norm, where school shooter drills were the norm, where COVID disrupted their education and prevented them from being normal kids while family members died at home. None of us on this panel dealt with any of that shit. So who are we, I guess, to lecture on the sacrosanctity of life when really, we put in place and entrenched the very systems that subjected these kids to death on a daily basis. So when I hear the pearl clutching more broadly about how young people should respect life, I mean, that they really inherited a world from us that doesn't respect it at all.
Brian, this generation has grown up on the safest, the best funded, the most nurtured, the best version of America that there has ever been. These are not depression babies, my brother.
But
COVID
people
sucked. I lived it with 3 kids. I know, but I'm saying help me understand the mindset of let's kill the CEOs so that one of the elements I had to go through tonight is somebody who's selling a deck of cards with CEOs' faces on them for who should be next. Where's that coming from with these people? Because they had a hard time during COVID?
So 2 things. One is that no generation really looks at itself relative to another generation. I mean, nobody really decides, okay, we're good because our parents walked uphill both ways in the snow with no shoes on, right? They all just look at their own existence in a vacuum. And so they just know that things are difficult because they're dealing with X, Y, Z. So I'll say that one thing. The second, in terms of the cards. And I just found out about this today, actually, when I was speaking with your producer earlier on. I think that you also have to consider, look, this is the social media environment that we live in, where there is an incentive structure for people to do to be the most, to be the most extra, right? And so if they have to say something the most provocative to get a response from people, that's what they're going to do. And so it's a combination of a lot of things here. The reason that you're seeing people at a concert react to a picture of this guy broadcast on the screen is the same reason that we're seeing decks of cards with other CEOs' faces on them. It's because that's kind of what the social media environment that we all live in, that's what it sends to the top. That kind of provocation is really what gets the most eyeballs, for better or for worse. That is why we're all discussing it right now. And so we can't really be surprised then when the system that was set up to garner eyeballs continues to do exactly that.
Hoisted on our own petard. Last word to Geraldo.
I just think that I'll see how impassioned people's feelings are toward this guy when he gets a life sentence for murder too. If I were his lawyers now, I wouldn't be thinking about anything other than copping a plea to get out after 25 years, because this guy's going down. He's a total loser in every regard, from the video to the fingerprints to, the gun in his knapsack to everything else. He is deranged, no doubt about it. He's also narcissistic, but this guy's going down in flames. Let's see if he keeps his groupies when he does that.
The only part that I thought was weird on the character analysis, Brian and Geraldo, is he ain't a real one, as you young guys like to say. He's not a real one. He's got generational wealth from nursing homes. That's how his family made their money. That's how this guy was able to live his best life in Hawaii. So it's just weird that they picked him to be that guy.
If I could say, can I say one thing, Chris? Do we have time for me to say one thing?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't really think it's about him. I mean, sure, it helps, as Geraldo said. It is a good-looking dude, so that helps, and it kind of creates a thing on its own. But I think this is more broadly about kind of a predatory system that so many people in this country feel so helpless over. And
they
look,
should.
The lionizing of a killer is too much for my sensibilities. I get that, but I think we are also we ignore this stuff at our own peril, and there is clearly a broader problem at play that I think it would benefit us not to cast off.
I agree, and that's why I want to be talking about it, and that's why I want to introduce people to you, because I encourage this audience. You got to sample. I know what you believe. I know what you don't want to believe. You got to sample, and I'm telling you, this young man is smart, and he's going to be a leader for a long time. Brian Tyler Cohen, to be continued. Geraldo Rivera, I love you. Thank you for joining me, as always.
Thanks, Chris.
Love you too, brother.
All right, 4 minutes and 30 seconds coming up. Look, NewsNation is built very specific, okay? Critical thinkers, independents. That's why we're here. We are not playing the party game. We are exposing it. Stephen A. Smith fits this mold beautifully. I'm telling you, the guy is going to be a hub of conversation in this country. Not just sports, everything. Now, why are they sweating my man, saying he's gone full MAGA? He's just got open eyes to possibilities of what's obvious. He'll explain next.
I'm a registered independent because I don't trust either side. I think both sides are full of it on so many levels and so many circumstances, it's nauseating.
Stephen A. Smith speaking the truth, but people are sweating him. I don't care, and neither does he. But I do think it is nice to have him joining us all the way from Las Vegas to talk about what he sees happening around us and what needs to stop. Thank you very much for making time.
Yeah, man. Good to see you.
So you were taken aback in particular by what you see at play with the prosecutor in New York, Alvin Bragg, and the ways that he's trying to keep going after Trump. Why?
Because I think it's a waste of time. If you could effectively go about the business of getting him, that would be one thing. If you could have prevented him from returning to the White House, if you could have incarcerated him, if you could have denied him the possibility of being able to be president again, that would be one thing. But now that that ship has sailed, let's move forward. It's time to start looking forward. It's time to stop looking back. They've been trying for years. And I'm not here to debate the veracity of their cases against Donald Trump. You can point to the 34 felony convictions. He can point to the fact that it was politicized. You can point to the abundance of things that they've chased after him for. He can make the argument that it was lawfare, and they was using the courts and the justice system of the United States to persecute him, to prevent him from winning an election, because they knew that it was the only way that they could beat him. He validated those assertions that he was making by winning in a romp, essentially, to win the election in November. There's no way to slice this, man. I mean, he won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College vote. He won the House. The Republicans won the House and the Senate. And on top of it all, he swept the swing states. You take all of those things into consideration, excuse my language, you got your ass kicked. It's time to stand down, look in the mirror, reflect on the kind of things that you were offering the American people, recognize the fact that it wasn't vibing with what the American people wanted, get back, lick your wounds, and strategize and come up with a new strategy leaning towards the center, I might add, which is where most Americans are, to get yourself back in the game and to remind us that you're for the people instead of for yourselves. That is the challenge that I'm issuing to the Democratic Party, and I'll be damned if I'm going to apologize for it.
So you got the political side, then you have the legal side. We'll start on that. The arguments against your position are, yeah, they wouldn't cut us a break like that, brother. You're only saying that because this white guy is above the law, and it's treating the powerful differently. And this has nothing to do with the election. He did what Bragg said he did, and Bragg is righteous despite the politics, not because of them.
Well, there's abundance of people that believe that was the weakest case against Donald Trump. Hush money to a former porn star. Their mentality was, what's the difference between that and somebody signing an NDA? A lot of people want clarification on that. I don't particularly care, because in the end, I'm saying if you're not going to incarcerate him and prevent him from running for re-election, which he would ultimately win, what sense does it make? That's just my opinion, and that's the way I felt about it, but I'll leave it at that. But I'll take it a step further. We can look at it from this standpoint. In the end, where is it getting you? And when we talk about, oh, he's a white guy, whatever, well, there was a black president. His name was Barack Obama. He certainly wasn't guilty of doing anything close to what it was asserted that Donald Trump did. But we also always understood that if you're the president of the United States, there are rules and regulations that may not necessarily be applicable to you. I mean, my Lord, stop the presses. It's breaking news. I don't know if you knew that, Chris Cuomo, but it's actually different rules at times for different people in positions of power, such as the president of the United States, the chief executive officer of the United States, who, by the way, is in charge of our military and all of this other stuff. I mean, we try to act like everybody is the same, but America historically has shown that it's not always the same. It's something we lamented. But in the process of lamenting those things, what did it do? It inspires us in a capitalistic society to elevate ourselves, to achieve the impossible dreams and the impossible achievements, so we can position ourselves not to break the law, not to be above the fray, not to be above the crowd, but to make sure that it's a bit harder to bring us down because we're so high on the pedestal. That's really what the American dream is all about. It's not just getting a paycheck to pay your mortgage and to have a nice car and to eat at nice restaurants. It's to put yourself in a lofty enough position that the things that persecute the average individuals out here in this country and in this world may be less applicable to you. We don't want to admit that, but that is the way it goes, which is why you have so many people salivating to be in positions of power, because they recognize the fact that rules that apply to the average Joe may not apply to them. Our healthcare system, take that for example. What have we lamented about our elected officials on Capitol Hill? The healthcare system that we all fall under isn't necessarily applying to them. Different rules for different folks. We lament it, we don't like it, but we also accepted it as a part of reality. That is the way that it goes. That's why you try to achieve. So the things that apply under normal circumstances may not always apply to you. That's the real world.
More real world talk. Megyn Kelly makes a market in finding points of outrage, especially to own the left, as they say in digital media. Caitlyn Clark, she says, all but apologized for being white. Because Caitlyn Clark, when she was made Times Athlete of the Year, which I thought was a pretty cool choice, and I believe that she is a real transitional figure for that league. I mean, she's just showing exactly why people thought there was so much promise. She said, don't forget about the black players. The league is built on them. It's not just about me. I thought it was a classy move. Megyn Kelly says you're embarrassed of being white. How'd you take it?
I didn't agree with Megyn Kelly. But I understand that Megyn Kelly echoed the sentiments of what a lot of white people have told me. My position on Caitlyn Clark has always been simple. She's a phenomenal, terrific player. I did an event at homecoming at the University of Iowa with her and my guy Mark Shapiro for William Morris Endeavor, and 11,000 people showed up. I can assure you it wasn't for me. It was for Caitlyn Clark. She was box office in college. She's box office on the pro level, selling out wherever she goes, exponentially increased attendance wherever she went, television ratings wherever she went, rising tide lifts all boats. And what she brought to the table should have been celebrated and should have been embraced collectively and universally. And the fact is that was not the case. There were people who came across as not being that receptive to her. One of them being Cheryl Swoops. You can deny it all she wants to. The facts are there. And there were other people that weren't keen to embrace her. But in fairness to them, what they were saying is the WNBA was built by a lot of these players who happened to be black, that were tireless in their work ethic, that were great, that were phenomenal, that produced. And all of that is true. But what they struggled to produce was ratings and revenue. And the fact is, even though it is still a struggle, it is less of a struggle because of Caitlyn Clark, who, by the way, they were flying commercial all of these years. Caitlyn Clark arrives 2 weeks later. They on chartered jets. This is what it is. Yeah. And so when you recognize that, that's why I said she should have been on Team USA. She should have been collectively embraced and appreciated. And the fact that she wasn't is an indictment against some of those people associated with the WNBA and women's basketball who did not embrace her, but most of them did support her. And so when Megyn Kelly says what she says, she's basically saying, what do you need to apologize for? That's how she came across. As a white person, that's a prerogative to come up with that conclusion. I'll let other white folks debate her on that. What I will confirm is that there appeared to be quite a few black players who felt that the appreciation she was receiving, they should have long received. They were right. But again, we get to reality. That's never been the case. And sometimes you just got to face the reality of a situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, Megyn Kelly's playing to advantage. White fright is a real thing. And she's playing, this is why she didn't work at NBC, elected. But she worked on, that's right. And that's why she's doing it. And that's why, she made peace with Trump. But I'll tell you this, on this issue, Larry Bird he was an amazing player. He did not make the NBA a household name. Michael Jordan did. So it's not always about race. It's about charisma. It's about beauty. Michael Jordan changed the league.
You came into my lane, Chris Cuomo. I love my man Michael Jordan. He's a friend. He is the greatest ever, the GOAT. But before him, the combination of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird together built the NBA.
Magic Johnson was magic.
They put the NBA in households. And got them off a delayed tape delay.
I agree with you. You are right, as always. And I love Dr. J, too. That's why we worked on my dunks so well. I was amazing. White chocolate. Stephen A. Smith, that's how I was known. Oh, yeah. I dunk donuts and coffees. I'll talk to you later. Thank you very much. That's all I'm dunking, my bro. We'll be right back. So I have to just... Dusty. All right, go ahead, Dusty.
I'm going to actually bring in Jesse Weber, who's hosting for Dan. He wants to talk to you about a couple of these topics, but I'm just waiting for him to get set. But in the meantime, I would like to...
His hair takes time.
Well, he's got great hair. I want to congratulate you, though, on signing...
Being handsome?
Well, that's a whole other story, which I'm going to tell...
Being jacked?
First, let me congratulate you on re-signing with NewsNation. We're thrilled. Your staff is so happy. The people are happy. The bosses are happy. But your staff is absolutely elated because they love and adore you, and they're so happy they get to continue with you. And that really is from the bottom of my heart. And we just couldn't be happier here. Can't speak for everybody else, but...
Everybody knows how I feel about the team and how much I need everybody. But you're my partner. And, in the business, we used to have that term, this is my work wife. But that was like a marginal supplicant that would travel with somebody when they were on the road. I do everything with Dusty. All the ideas, everything. So it really is a team. I've never had anything like it. I've always wanted it. I always wanted someone who could make me better at the job. And that is you. And then some. I love you very much. You're one of my, you're not a friend. You're the family I choose. But on this, and then we'll go to break, there was no choice here to make. There's only one cable outlet that allows people to expose the game of what's happening in our politics and our government instead of playing it, and it's NewsNation. There was no choice to make.
Can I tell you something else that happened today while we're waiting for Jesse Weber to come join us? So
is it about me or you?
It's about you. So I was going into a hospital, actually, and this woman stopped me and said how lucky I was that I got to work with the most handsome man on TV. And then I said, I know you're going to see the eye surgeon.